Let's see. It seems I am live. Hello everyone. I hope today everything okay with my mic. I hope you can see me and hear me well. Welcome to day 6 of candidates where we have amazing results. Napo is 1 point ahead of everyone. MVL is 1 point behind him. Clear second place. And then 50% tied for third place. Lots of players. Today I will not start with the most interesting game, which was Napo beating Ding. In my previous streams I mentioned that Ding has a very narrow opening repertoire and that would be a problem for him. By the way, let me know if there's anything wrong with the transmission. Please ask any question you'd like. Well, chess related question. Alright, let's go. So today I'm gonna be using a strong awesome fish, as you can see here on the right, and on the left I'm gonna be using my friends Lila, and at the end of when we discuss all the 4 games, I would show you an example where Lila could be very helpful in your analysis, and I would show you where even this not the fastest Lila compared to this Stockfish. Stockfish has a much higher speed at this moment. Well, if you can compare those things, where it can prove Stockfish to be wrong, I would show you the game from candidates that happened a few days ago. And lots of people got misled by that evaluation and that suggestion by Stockfish. All right, so by the way, another high quality game by Grishchuk. For some reason, he was surprised with Caruana's opening choice, although he already played this line here against MVL, if I remember correctly. So here he was surprised with rook e8 and started thinking here. Okay, rook e8 is by far not the main move. That's the reason why. I see, okay. Just 2 games in database and no correspondence chess, at least the one I know of. So here Grishchuk spent 14 minutes on knight g5, then he came back to f3. He checked Fabi's intentions. Fabi is okay with the draw. And now he sought for, according to chess24, 27 minutes. And then he played rook e1 and went for a sharp line with a sacrifice. Hello, Kirill Nashat, if I'm pronouncing correctly. I hope you can see me well, because in my YouTube studio it tells me that there's some mistake, but I hope you can see me and hear me well. All right, so it takes guts to go rook e1 here, because takes, knight e4, you're 1 pawn down. So he went with d5, bishop e3, the rook e3, knight to a7, queen d4, all forcing good moves, another forcing move, another forcing move, another forcing move. So he played all these natural moves that I think he would play in a blitz game in a second. He spent on those moves queen d4 10 minutes, knight bd2 13 minutes, and then 12 minutes on bishop d1 move. So according to Lila, white is better. According to Stockfish, it is zeros. But this is all Fabi's preparation. He started thinking at move 23-24. And he started thinking after bishop d1, which is still the best line of both engines. Now he played b4. b4 would be the huge threat. b4, bishop e2. So I would say the game was white has strategical compensation for the pawn because of misplaced knight on a7, but nothing more than that. And the whole game was within equality. I would say it takes guts to play for a win with white if you're worse prepared and you're lower on time. And I also would say that it is not very logical, but Grishchuk did many illogical decisions in this tournament, I mean time-wise. So, but thank you for playing, Sasha, because fast draw would not be fun. Rook e3, good move. b3, queen f4. Apparently queen c3 was good, but I don't really understand why. My engines are tired. Queen c3, running into knight b5. I do not understand this move. Any other move as the queen gave white advantage, so I'm not sure why Fabi. So I have a feeling that Fabi goes for these, I wouldn't say dubious, but by far not the main lines, just to keep the main ones for Magnus, because he assumes that he would win. That's my guess. because Slav for black, he constantly gets in trouble. This position is not good. Even Stockfish agrees with Lila. So it's hard to play for black. Grishchuk had several minutes on his clock. That's why he couldn't do any harm to Fabi. So yeah, I would probably turn this one off because it's working poorly. 1 second. Will not pay money for it. I'm gonna use my regular Stockfish. And I would put it right here to not close the board. Okay, so bishop to c4, maybe there were better moves. Knight takes to b3, he could have taken the pawn. Knight takes, rook takes, knight takes. But all of these positions are within equality. There are not too many pieces. Maybe white is slightly better, but not more than that. By the way, how much time Grishchuk spent on bishop to c4? Let me see. Bishop 2 minutes, but that's all he had, I'm guessing here. So I'm a fan of more straightforward chess. If you see a pawn, just take it. Thank you, Valery, for Lila and for seeing and hearing me well and letting me know. I appreciate it. All right. So I'm not sure how it is correct to judge his decisions. He had like several minutes. Thank God he didn't lose for him. Knight b5 takes, he did take the pawn, pieces got exchanged. There was one moment, according to Stockfish, where c5, nice move. In case of capture, bishop e6, this is something you can easily blunder. So it could be that he blundered c5 move, which is a great move that significantly improves black's pawn structure. Queen d3, g6, slightly improving the position, and now apparently knight c7 was not accurate. I tend to agree with this one, because move the bishop first, and then knight c7, bishop to b7, pawn on d5 is in trouble. Grishchuk would have hard time here. Fabi spent on knight c7, let me see, 1 minute, and then 12 minutes on f5 on move 40. So he did have time, but the chance was gone. And black doesn't have time, for example, to move the bishop, because the knight goes, and d6 pawn is hanging. And so he had to go f5 to cover the square, king to f6, king to g3, bishop b5. This position is just a fortress, not much to talk about. So they kept on playing, I don't know why, just maybe for the viewers, and that was it. Nobody can win here. So Grishchuk was better, Caruana was better, overall a decent draw, I would say. Okay, let's move on to the next game. Oh no. Hold on a second, why doesn't it? Okay, if I close the board, you don't see anything. Let me open this one. Can you see the board? No, hold on a second, sorry for technical difficulties. Usually I just press next game and it's all fine, and now it's not okay. This is the game I want you to see. Oleksiyenko Giri. What can I say about this game? Kirill tried to lose this game many times and finally he succeeded. So Giri had a much better position out of the opening. He had much better position after in the middle game, and then he lost all of it, and only at the end Kirill, he did put pressure, so that's for sure the case, and so he deserved to win, don't get me wrong, he deserved to win, but he did get enormous help from Kirill. So let's see time-wise, Oleksiyenko Giri, let me see. Kirill started thinking at move 17 and earlier, even earlier, at move 11, and Giri was thinking on move 9. So both of them, I'm guessing, did not, hello, Jay, or Jai. Thanks for joining. So, Italian, rook e1, a5, knight bd2. So white didn't play h3 and black didn't play h6, and Giri decided to make use of that. So bishop e6, bishop b5. There are plenty of games that start with queen b8 and queen a7. And here Giri thought for some time. He realized that Kirill was waiting for him, and he played this move bishop to a7, which looks a little bit weird. So, but the idea of Giri's idea is to move the knight to g6, which is where the knight belongs. This pawn on c3 completely restricts this knight from c6, and it's very misplaced, which is often the main problem of the position. But you cannot do it now, of course, because d4, and this is not a very good position. You have to give up the center, and black doesn't want to do it, although it is still playable. So he decides Karpov style, moves the bishop first, now moves the knight. And the difference is, if these two moves were included, then d4 would be a good move. But now d4 is not so good because of bishop g4, and this pawn is hard to hold, and black is doing apparently okay. I never analyzed this position further, but apparently black is doing fine here. So white played h3, and black was the first one to push. Usually the first one to push the d pawn gets advantage. And that's exactly the case right here. E d5, knight d5, bishop to c2. A little passive move, but I don't know what else to suggest here. It doesn't make sense to do this, although this is engine's suggestions. They lose so many tempos and still go to b3. So he went to c2, hoping for d4, I'm guessing, queen c7, d4. But it turns out that usually you should take those bishops. You take the bishop and you ruin the pawn structure. Usually that's what you're supposed to be doing. Here there's a problem on this diagonal, there's a problem here, and there's a problem here. F takes e is good, but this one is just crushing. So knight takes e6 fails tactically. That would be great strategically speaking, to take the bishop, ruin the pawn structure, and get two bishop advantage. But it fails because of bishop takes f2. That's why rook a to e8. If rook f to e8, well, now queen g3 is possible because f8 rook is not hanging. All right. So rook a to e8. Giri on move 17 already got advantage. Bishop to g5, knight to f4, queen d2, bishop d5. Black's play is much easier. Rook e8, rook e8, rook e1. White tried to simplify. I didn't like this rook e5 move. This looks weird to me. I like more natural, straightforward chess. Maybe that's not always the best strategy, because then your opponent knows what to expect from you. Rook e5, Giri spent 5 seconds, so that was obviously prepared on previous move. What does both engines suggest to take, and just king f8. Okay, that is not very human, I must say. It is not a very human move. Okay, so the point is now g2 is hanging, because now taking on g2 is not good because of check. And I don't know, bishop e7, I guess. There are plenty of winning moves here, anything. So check is very unpleasant, so that's why queen b8 or king f8, and white is having hard time protecting the pawn on g2, and black is much better. He decided to play a forcing move, and after takes, white's advantage, black's advantage is almost gone now, although black still keeps two bishops, but it's not that big. And now Kirill makes a mistake again, so here, I don't know, is bishop b3 possible? No, I lose the pawn. Knight g to f5, just jump with the knight. And then with the threat of queen e8 mate in few moves, so just jump forward, and that was apparently good enough. But he decided to give check and then exchange pieces, and got in trouble again. Again, big advantage for Giri. And few logical moves later, Giri let white push d5. I don't know why would he do that. Maybe he didn't see what else to do. White, and now again equal. So how many times did Giri had advantage in this position? We haven't even gotten to the most interesting part. So king f8, now the position is equal. White is slightly worse because of doubled pawns, but white compensate that with an amazing queen on d5. So I really have no explanation why didn't he take that pawn. Maybe he answered that during the press conference. It is so natural to take the pawn, and there is no pin here because a4, there's always a check, of course. check, and then takes on a4. So a4 is not the problem. What could be the problem? Knight d4, that is not a problem. It's a check and white is winning. So did he try to play for a win with queen d7? I really don't understand this decision. Just take a pawn, the position is equal. You still have your knight d6 ideas. Maybe I'm missing something, but he decided to do this move. And again, he's worse after b6. Queen f6, now he's one pawn down and he has to prove compensation. And now king to g8, removing the king from the fork. Check, knight go backs to f8. Queen d6, now white has to prove compensation, which is not easy to do. So what happened next? Queen to d8, defending the pawn. Queen d4 was more active, I guess, and now knight c4, a mistake. Queen d7, okay, this was nice. Queen d7, queen b6, now check, and then a4, and white is in trouble. So, but knight e6 is also a good try. Knight to d4, queen b7 was correct move, but it's not obvious to me. I just take the pawn. Knight d7, I push the pawn. It looks like a bad idea to me. So queen c5 is much more natural. Knight takes b3, queen b5, knight d2, queen a5, queen d3. This is not mate. White can protect everything. Check. King goes, check. King goes, takes. Of course, taking is blundering the queen. So they go to a knight endgame. Knight endgames are not like pawn endgames, for the record. They are similar, I would give you that. But this pawn ending would be easily won for black, but it is a draw because of knights. Knights improve drawing chances significantly because of forks, because of checks, because it's very hard to create a Zugzwang, because within pawn ending you win basically only because you make a Zugzwang, right? If you have extra pawn, you just pass the move to your opponent and the king has to move and you push the passed pawn. With knights it's not the case. With knights you just move the knight and stay with the king. So that's why this position is a draw. And by the way, check out Leela's evaluation. Leela understands this position even without table bases. So maybe minus 0.2 is too optimistic, but it's -1 is more human evaluation, but -1 it is a draw here. So he was holding a draw until, so black is approaching slowly, white is waiting. So far everything according to seems to be right. White is preventing black from improving. Still the pawn is weak, king goes around, king comes closer. Now knight f2 apparently only move. Well, g1 doesn't make sense. Knight d6, knight back to h3. And again, minus 2.5, really? I don't believe this one. King d3, why is it so bad? Knight f2, king d2. Knight back to h3, why is it a win according to Stockfish? Knight to f5. I don't understand. Knight to f2. Ah no, king f2. And where's the win? Where's the win? Stockfish. It's too many pieces to check with table bases, but minus 3.7 should be a win, and yet Leela is not convinced. So I want Stockfish to convince Leela here. King d1, knight g1, knight d4, knight h3, king d2, knight g1. I don't know. I am tired to try to find a winning plan myself, so I thought maybe Stockfish would show it. Funny how Leela and Stockfish disagree on 53rd move. 53rd move. Hold on a second. What do you mean by that? Minus 11 at move 78. Move 78, exactly. So, so I'm not sure who's right here. You can find it on your own. There should be some winning idea. -5 looks very convincing to me, but king c3 looks ridiculous. So I don't understand this. It cannot be some trend. If that's a triangulation, that's amazing. You know, just you make a triangle. If it's white to move, I'd go still knight h3. I don't see a problem with that. So I really don't know. -5 looks convincing, but the evaluation is the same, so it could be still a draw. It requires a human approach, you know, like I'm gonna move the knight, so it's going back and forth with the knight doing nothing. King c3, knight f5, king d4. I really don't know. So let's just move on. So it's beyond even Stockfish's understanding of chess. So from human point of view, he was doing good moves. Of course, this is hard to defend. I never said that it's an easy defense. By the way, knight f3 again, -4 and -1. Who's right here? Knight c3, knight d2, king d3, knight back to f3. Is this really a win? Knight d5, knight h2, knight e3. Yeah, okay, Lila also agreed. So maybe Stockfish calculates better this one. Hold on, but it's already seven pieces. You can check on Lichess if you want to. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the moment where he lost the game. Knight is a very tricky. If you look at this with ancient, oh, it's zeros. It's not zeros. White is in big trouble, and it requires calculation. A nice variation was this one. H5 was correct. I'm pretty sure here, but it loses the knight, so it requires calculation. Knight d5, king d4, knight f4, pawn and knight are hanging, but the pawn goes forward. King takes, pawn goes forward, and king goes around, and king just attacks the knight, and that would be or takes the pawn, and that would be a draw. So h5 would give a draw, although f4 requires calculation. King d3, no, not much calculation, just push the pawn and that's it. So h5 would lead to a draw, and he played knight d3, and that was losing because I'm guessing he missed this move that stops h5, and that's it. The game was over. So knight is a very tricky piece if you're in time trouble, and that's why Kirill lost. And finally Giri won this game. He deserved to win it much earlier. Technically he didn't have a winning advantage, but at any point, but he had an advantage many times. All right, next game, Van Gaal, Vasiela Graf. Grunfeld, and again Grunfeld. Dubov, Svidler, many games for this position. Bishop b7, queen d2. So Van Gaal blitzed out moves until basically, if I remember correctly, let me see. Van Gaal, Vasiela Graf, he blitzed out moves until move king f2, still blitzing out 22nd move. So I really don't know what he had prepared on check. I really don't know, because the king was just on g1. Knight g3, pinning yourself doesn't look very good to me. Maybe even some f5 is possible. So what did he plan to do? King f1, I give another check. If white wants to play for a win, white has to do this move. I really don't know what he had prepared. This looks weird. Why would you give up the h file? So I don't know what MVL didn't like about the check on h4. Maybe he would just come back to g1 and offer a draw, but black doesn't have to come back to f6. Black can do this move. So I don't know what he had prepared, but after rook h8, rook h1, white was better now a little bit. Queen to c3, king g8. I've seen it so many times. MVL gets in a bad position in his favorite Grunfeld and then finds his way out using... very often he sacrifices the pawn and the engine gives +1, but then he still holds the draw. That's exactly what I've seen many games like this from him. +1, there you go, +1, and Lila gives already decisive advantage. King f8, of course king has to go to the center. So where did he go wrong? Well, queen h4 check was definitely better in my opinion. On queen c3, king g7 was a more natural move, and the queen would be protected. So on king g8, d5 happened, and on d5 the queen is protected. Black doesn't have to take, so black can do this. It seems like an improvement to me. Maybe he didn't like d6 move with a children's trick of d7 promoting, but king can now go here. Maybe he didn't like this one, that white can, this pawn looks dangerous. Maybe that's the case. That's why he played this move. But now he got in trouble because white has an amazing king, strong passed pawn, and white can improve on both sides of the board. Knight to b5. supported by Lila. A6, knight to c7, king d6, knight a6, one pawn up, but black regrouped the pieces. Knight b4 apparently was better. Why is that? Knight b4, knight c5, bishop c4, g4. Yeah, just improving the knight was a better idea. g4, g5, you need to put the pawns on the opposite color of your bishop. So I'm not sure about g4 move. It seems that white had huge winning chances here, including these two moves favors black. It's just as simple as that. White has all the pawns on white squares. You're not supposed to be doing that if you have that bishop. But who am I to judge? I can judge. I have a positive score against Van Gaal. I can judge his decisions. All right, knight b4, still big winning chances. Bishop to d7. Knight c6 apparently was good. I don't know. Knight c2, knight is going to e3. Now black regrouped. And now I'm afraid it's a draw. Knight on d6, black puts all his pieces on black squares. It's very hard to break through, and I don't think that that white could have succeeded at any point. f5 was not necessary, but he decided to force things. Again, Stockfish and they both would give big advantage, but this is still a fortress on dark squares, and there was nothing white could do about that. So white tried, of course. You don't agree for a draw here immediately. You play lots of moves, and only then you agree for a draw. So nice save by MVL. He was on the edge. I don't know why he didn't give check. This looks so natural. Maybe knight g3 was his preparation. Maybe f5 is wrong because of something. I don't know. Queen f4 is coming. Queen c3. I don't know. Queen back to f6. Maybe this was a Van Gaal's preparation. Takes, d5, queen goes here. But this is a draw. This is, come on. I prefer black even. Okay, there's one check on d6. It's no big deal. So I really don't know why not a check. After that he was in trouble, and then he was lost, and then he saved the game, which is often the case with MVL. And now the main game of the day. Nepo Ding. I would repeat myself. Ding has very narrow opening repertoire. He's easy to predict in almost all the lines. Wait a second, I'm gonna move Lila here for a second. I want to see. Yeah, Ding, Ding, Ding. He played this position many times. Castle, knight c3, knight a5, always bishop e6, b4 takes, rook takes, knight c6, bishop g5, queen d7. MVL Ding last year takes, knight d5, still a5, so he's very consistent, and he lost to Magnus and drew MVL, so he's confident in his prac, and now rook b2 a novelty, and it's not a surprising novelty, I must say. If you just, so I imagine I'm second of Nepo, and I'm like, what should I prepare for Ding? So he keeps going for this position. He's clearly confident in his preparation if he plays it against MVL and Carlsen. And rook a1 is the best move according to Stockfish, but if you look with Lila suggests rook b2 as equally good option, and this is the second option of Stockfish. That's why he was surprised. In those games, what happened in those games? c4 happened in those games. There were games with knight takes f6, but apparently black is doing all right there. And now rook b2, very logical move. b5 pawn is hanging. You can keep the a file, I don't mind. Bishop goes to d8, and Nepo was blitzing out almost all moves, and that almost led to a disaster. c4, all prepared. So, well, if takes, this is just horrible. White dominates on white squares. Queen d3, b5, white just pushes. So that's why knight d4. So Ding plays as the first line of the engine. So if you're analyzing with Stockfish 11, you would see zeros if you're only using that engine. If you look at the position with your own eyes, you're like, hold on a second, I have a great knight, I have potential on the king side and on the queen side, let me see. Or if you just turn on Lila, it would give you immediately the evaluation that white is better, because white has queen and knight, which is always better, okay, not always, against queen and bishop. Queen c2, rook e8, still best line according to Stockfish. G3, now already Stockfish gives advantage to... so I'm guessing Nepo analyzed c6, knight f4, and he had lots of deeper analysis here. But Lila already gives advantage here, and White's play is easy. Just g3, king g2, h4, knight. There's nothing happening on the a file. That bishop is just a bad piece. White is just slightly better till the end of the game. Rook e8, Nepo blitzed out g3. White is slowly improving the position. So Dink wanted some counterplay. So he played several active moves. By the way, g5 is... that's how desperate black should be to play g5 in this position. Both engines are suggesting this move. No human being would play this move. That's way too risky. Weakening all those weak squares. Bishop g5 is a human move. Knight e2, d5 takes. And I think somewhere here Nepo started thinking. When, let me see, when did his preparation end? He spent 5 minutes on ed5. 5 minutes. Well, you don't really have any choice. So he spent basically 6 minutes to move the queen to b3. And all White needs to do is improve the knight. So White is strategically winning here. There's like a wall of pawns here. There's a passed pawn here. This bishop is shooting into empty space. White's only problem is the knight on e2. It needs to do something. Well, the pawn on d4, h5. So Dink is desperate for any counterplay. Pawn on d4 is never a good idea because of a pin, right? And knight needs protection. But Nepo just pushed, and here he just blitzes out moves. b5, maybe that was still his preparation, but no, it was not. You'll see in a second why. So he blitzed out in under 3 minutes until move 36. Until move 36, remember that number. h4, h4, why queen takes c4, question by Valery. Because that was his preparation. Really, why not dc4? I don't want to give a strong passed pawn on d4. And I don't want my queen to be busy with protecting this pawn. Yeah, maybe knight would come here. That would look nice. But then pawn would need protection. And yeah, I don't like giving my opponent passed pawns. And b5 looks too artificial to me. It's like c3, c takes d. I don't know, why would you give up the pawn for no reason? So that's why queen c4. So he just pushes the pawn. By the way, Lila is not a big fan of this move, but it could be wrong. h4, b6, h3, and now remember I told you that White has a problem with the knight. Now knight has a place to go. And it's g1 because there's a pawn on h3 that would need protection. King h1, rook e to b8, very good try, because now the bishop would go here and the a file is important. Rook to b1, all blitzed out by Nepo. Queen b5. There were other moves, but queen b5, any endgame would be a win. Because now this is hanging, this would be lost, this pawn is just going, this is hopeless. So Dink goes queen g4, and he actually succeeded. Here Nepo blitzed out like in 2 minutes. That's actually very irresponsible. It did work, but it's very irresponsible in my opinion. He just took the pawn very quickly. On move 36 I mentioned, he started thinking, right? Before that it's just 2 minutes per move. And he had like 1 hour 30. So he could have just sat here for 10-15 minutes and calculated queen e8, here takes... there's no queen f3 mate, rook b7, queen takes another pawn, 2 pawns up, now queen e4 check is coming, b7 is hanging, this is completely hopeless. What didn't he like here? Maybe rook takes b6 he didn't like. Rook takes b6, bishop takes b6, and knight on e2 is hanging, but even knight g1 and everything is hanging, the king is surprisingly safe. This is hanging, that is hanging, White is just dominating. But my guess is he relaxed because it seems that everything is winning. So he took the pawn here, and after rook a5, he blitzed out the mistake that could have been the crucial one. He blitzed out queen c6, but in his defense, Dink did the same. He also blitzed out rook c5 because he didn't see any other option whatsoever, and there was one. But if you look with Stockfish, it looks easy. No, it's not. So what is White's problems? White's problem is the king. There's the mating ideas here. White has a problem of back rank, and the knight on e2 is poorly protected, semi-protected. So rook takes b6. Rook takes b6. Well, if bishop takes, it's just... I thought I can take, but I cannot take. Knight g1. Oh, f3 just wins, and then just take the bishop, of course. So bishop takes doesn't work, so maybe that's why they rejected it. And queen e2 doesn't seem like a big deal, because there's no even immediate threat except the attack for the rook. So rook b8, and normally people stop the line here. There's no mate, exchange down, but this amazing move rook to e5, which is very hard to spot and very easy to blunder. Rook takes d8 check, king h7 quiet move, and I told you about the back rank problem. Now queen e1 is a huge threat, and if white goes through g1, black just takes the pawn, and apparently black has all the time in the world to do rook e2 or rook e1, and there's nothing white can do. White is actually in trouble here, and white has to save the game with rook h8. And so, for example, the queen, for example, queen a8 is the move to try, and then rook e1. Oh, there's one check here. There's no check on e4. There's one check on c6, f6, and the checks are gone, and black is winning. So actually, rook g1 is not working. So actually, white has to do this: rook h8, king h8, queen c8, king h7, check, and king goes. I don't know. Not sure if it matters. g6. White is one pawn up, but black is very active. This is hanging, this is hanging. So that could have been a miraculous save by Dink, but he didn't see it. He went for this. And now Nepo just played it safe. White is one pawn up, but white is better. That's the evaluation. White has extra pawn. This is weak. The queen is active. And the game ended like this. It seems that white cannot unpin, but white can unpin. White just goes f3. And then next move would be, so these pieces cannot move, all of them, but rook would go to b4 with this threat to take this pawn. Black would have to take. So for example, I know king h6 could have continued. Rook to b, rook a2 doesn't make sense. Rook b4, the pawn is hanging. Now rook d3, knight takes h3. That's why f3 move was needed. Rook takes f3 and king g2 technically winning position, or just one pawn for the pieces, not enough. That's why Dink resigned. Another painful defeat, but narrow opening repertoire. He's an easy target on that level. I did not expect so many defeats, so many times where he got caught in the opening, but nevertheless, the tournament situation. Next game. Okay, the next one is one last thing that I wanted to show where Stockfish was wrong. So the tournament situation after 6 rounds, amazing result by Nepo, +3, 3 wins, 3 draws. If I remember correctly, 3 wins in the candidates is already a tie for first, like after 14 rounds, and Nepo managed to get there in 6 rounds. But he's a very unstable player, so anything can change. For example, tomorrow he has black against MVL, which is 1 point behind, and he would be very eager to beat him. And that would be a fun game to watch. And 3 out of 6 have Caruana, Giri, Van Kao, and Grishchuk. And Dink and Oleksiyenko have 2 out of 6. Who could have predicted that Dink would have a tournament -2 after 6 rounds, last place? He was one of the favorites. It can still change, hypothetically, but I find it very unlikely. He needs just one really lucky win, and then he would get inspired again. Like a win against his win against Caruana, you can call it a lucky win. He again got worse, his preparation was worse, but he managed to win. That was his lucky win, and it seemed like the tournament was starting over for him. But now, after, it's very hard after such defeat. It's very hard to recover. So tomorrow the main match would be MVL against Nepo. And here's the game Oleksiyenko Nepomniachtchi from 4 days ago. The moment I wanted to show you was this one. So look to your right. That's the evaluation of Stockfish. I'm gonna play G5 move. And I'm guessing I didn't watch all the transmissions. G5 was pointed out by many commentators because that's the first line of the engine. So I'll give you an example. And take a look to your left. This is very slow Lila. It's not very fast one. It's not running very fast at the moment. Almost more than full pawn difference. Stockfish gives advantage to black, and Lila says white is better. So what do I do in this kind of situation? That's why you need 2 points of view. Okay, now Stockfish realized that h5 is good. But even h takes g is better for white. But I'm going to play h5. Stockfish gives, depending on what version and what depths, gives advantage to black, and Lila gives big advantage to white. So I usually let them fight. So I do best move according to Stockfish. So I'm going to make long castle, minus 0.66. That looks like a lot. Now Lila says it's 0.76 in white's favor. f4, again best move by Stockfish. G takes f4. Best move by Lila, queen takes f4. Again, Stockfish says minus 0.6. And I stop this when usually Stockfish has to agree with Lila. That's usually the case, unless Lila blunders. So I'm going to play rook d7 by Stockfish. Already zeros. Okay. If I achieve zeros, I understand that Lila was right. And Lila increased the evaluation. So you can do it if you have access to both engines. It's very fun. When they disagree, you just let them fight. I'm going to go queen f6 by Lila. Stockfish yells queen d8. And I'm going to play... Lila says any move is good. And Stockfish says, no, you have to take on d8. Lila says, you don't take, you do anything. I'm going to play this move, rook c1. Takes. Still zeros by Stockfish, but white is pressing because white has a clear plan of moving the king g4. And I didn't play the best move. Rook c7. What does Lila say? g4 Lila says. Okay. King d7 by Stockfish. King g2 by Lila. Rook h2 c8 by Stockfish. c3 by Lila. So it gives zeros, but for me it is obvious that white is playing for a win. The pawn is hanging, white is pressing. Maybe black can hold, but the evaluation to begin with was very misleading. White could have done anything almost on every move. So g5 was not seizing the initiative. We can do the same for h takes g5, by the way. H takes g5, minus 1 almost from Stockfish. And Lila gives small advantage to white. So let's say queen takes g5. Stockfish says queen e7, Lila says queen f6, Stockfish says king d7, Lila says g3, Stockfish says rook a c8, Lila says rook c1. Okay, this too many open files for the rooks, that's why I think white is not better here. What does Stockfish say? Queen f8, Lila says bishop g5, Stockfish says rook g8, Lila says bishop back to d2, Stockfish says king c6, Simon says bishop h6, queen e8, bishop h7, rook h8, bishop back to d3. I don't see what black can do in this position. Queen d8, even queen d8 by Lila. Okay. Okay, now Stockfish convinced Lila in this one. So taking was not a good idea. Bishop g5 was better. And it is a better version because there are lots of open files. Okay, I got dragged into a little off the road. All right, so that was day 6. Thank you for watching. You can check the description for the video. Tell your friends about the stream if you like it. And do we have a game tomorrow? Let me see. Yes, we do. No, we do not. Round starts in... Okay, maybe 3 rounds. Okay, 3 rounds and rest, 3 rounds and rest. So that was... tomorrow we have a rest day. I hope you all are safe and healthy. Take care and goodbye.